The seventh door, abandoned places. Marcus had worked the night shift at Lincoln Elementary for 3 years, and in that time he'd learned the building the way you learn an old song. Every creak, every flicker, every door. There were 6 doors in the basement hallway. He could have named them in his sleep. Boiler room bought old storage, the one with the broken lock that the district kept promising to fix. He knew them the way you know your own teeth, so when he came down to do his Thursday rounds and found a 7th door at the end of the hall, he didn't move for a long time. It was plain, gray like government paint. No room number, no sign. Nothing stenciled on the little window most of the others had. Just a door where 3 weeks ago there had been nothing but a stretch of brick. He told himself the obvious thing, that the district had finally done that remodel they kept talking about, that he just hadn't noticed yet, that buildings change and nobody tells the janitor. He almost believed it, almost, but he'd swept that hallway 5 nights a week for 3 years. He knew every inch of that brick like it was his own hand. That had been 3 weeks ago. Since then, the door had become a kind of test he gave himself. Walk past it, don't touch it. Go home. He'd gotten good at the test until the night the bell started. It came from behind the door. A school bell, the old kind, metallic and tired sounding. But it never matched the clock on his phone. Sometimes it rang at 9:14, sometimes 11:51. Never on the hour, never on any schedule a school would actually run. He mentioned it to Teresa, who'd done the shift before him, ran into her at the union office picking up a check. She went quiet in a way that told him more than words would have. Then she said she remembered a door like that. Said she quit 2 days after she started hearing the bell and never came back for her last paycheck. That should have been enough to keep him away. Instead, it was the thing that sent him to the library on his day off, scrolling through digitized newspapers until his eyes ached. He found it in a 1962 archive. A short item, 3 paragraphs, easy to miss. A classroom at Lincoln had been closed early due to district restructuring that spring. No further explanation, no follow-up story. Just a clipped little notice and then nothing, like the subject had been quietly closed along with the room. Tonight the bell rang at 12:58 a.m. Marcus stood in front of the door with his mop bucket still dripping behind him, and for the first time in 3 weeks, he didn't walk away. The handle was warm, warmer than a basement that cold had any right to make a piece of metal. He stood there with his hand on it, listening to his own pulse, and then he turned it. The hinges didn't creak. He'd expected them to. Inside was a classroom, not a ruin, not a storage closet full of broken desks, but a classroom exactly as it must have looked the day it closed. Chalkboard half covered in handwriting, a row of coat hooks with little cardigans still hanging from them, sunlight that shouldn't have existed in a windowless basement, falling in dusty columns across rows of wooden desks, and in those desks, children, maybe 20 of them. A teacher at the front, mid-gesture, chalk still raised toward the board. They all turned to look at him at once, unhurried, like they'd simply been waiting for someone to finally open the door. None of them looked afraid. None of them looked surprised either. The teacher set her chalk down on the rail beneath the board, smoothed her skirt, and looked at him with the patient expression of someone greeting a slightly late student. "What year is it?" she asked. "Out there?" His mouth was dry, he told her. She nodded slowly, like he'd confirmed something rather than answered a question. Behind her, the children sat with their hands folded, watching him with the same unhurried patience. "Then it's almost your turn," she said, "to ring it for us." Somewhere above the chalkboard, a bell he hadn't noticed before gave one soft, expectant click. The sound a bell makes right before it rings, not after. Marcus took a step back. The door began to swing shut behind him on its own, slow and deliberate, the gap of light narrowing with the children still watching, still waiting, the teacher's hand lifting toward a bell rope he couldn't see. He had maybe 3 seconds to decide whether he was stepping back through that gap or letting it close with him still on the inside. Marcus has worked there 3 years. Tonight is the first night he's had to choose. 7th door, part 2. Marcus didn't step back. He told himself afterward it wasn't bravery. It was that his body simply didn't move fast enough, that the 3 seconds the teacher had given him slipped by while he was still trying to make sense of what he was looking at. By the time he thought to retreat, the gap was already too narrow, and some part of him, the part that had spent 3 weeks failing a test he'd set for himself, decided that retreating now would mean never knowing. The door closed behind him with a sound like a held breath being let out. The classroom didn't change, that was the strangest part. He'd braced for the room to shift into something else once he was sealed inside. for the sunlight to die, for the children's faces to turn into something his mind wouldn't be able to file away as ordinary. None of that happened. The columns of dusty light kept falling exactly where they'd been falling. The cardigans kept hanging on their hooks, swaying very slightly as if a basement door closing could stir a breeze. The teacher studied him with something that might have been relief. "You'll want to sit," she said, nodding at an empty desk in the back row. Not an order, just a fact about what came next. He sat. The wood was cool and real under his hands, grain worn smooth by 60 years of forearms that had never aged a single day. She told him the story the way you'd tell a child something sad but necessary, gently without flourish. The classroom hadn't been restructured in 1962. It had been sealed deliberately on the recommendation of a district official who never wrote down his reasons, after something happened that the surviving paperwork only ever called the incident. She didn't elaborate, and Marcus understood somehow that this was the one part of the story he wasn't going to get tonight. Maybe not ever. What she did tell him was simpler. The room hadn't moved forward because no one had ever rung the bell to end the day. Recess never finished. The lesson never closed. 20 children and one teacher, suspended in the last unfinished minute of a school day 6 decades gone, waiting on a sound that nobody had been left behind to make. "Every door needs someone to close it properly," she said. "Ours never got the chance," Marcus asked, because it seemed like the only question that mattered: what would happen if the bell finally rang? She smiled at that, the first real smile he'd seen from her, and said she didn't fully know, not for certain, but that not knowing didn't frighten her anymore. 60 years was a long time to sit in an unfinished minute. She said the children were tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. She said she was tired the same way. The bell rope hung from a small lever beside the chalkboard, the kind of mechanism Marcus had seen in photos of old schoolhouses but never in person. She gestured to it, not urgently, the way you'd point out an exit to a guest. "It has to be someone from outside," she said. "Someone who still has a year to go back to." He thought about Teresa, quitting 2 days after she first heard the bell, never coming back even for her last check. He understood now that she hadn't been scared off by a sound. She'd understood on some level exactly what that sound was asking of her, and she hadn't been ready to be the one who answered. Marcus stood, walked to the front of the room past 20 pairs of patient eyes, and put his hand on the rope. He asked her quietly if it would hurt them. She said she didn't think endings were the kind of thing that hurt, that the only thing that had ever hurt was the waiting. He pulled the rope. The bell sounded exactly like it had through the door for 3 weeks, except now it didn't stop. It rang and rang, filling the room the way water fills a glass, and the dusty sunlight columns began to thin, and the children rose from their desks in one unhurried motion, gathering coats from hooks that were already starting to look less like cardigans and more like after-images of cardigans, like a photograph fading in reverse. The teacher was the last thing he saw clearly. She nodded to him once, not thank you exactly, more like finished. And then the room was just a room again, empty, dark, smelling of old chalk and cold brick, the desks bare and undisturbed, as if no one had sat in them for 60 years, because no one had. The door stood open behind him, leading back to the ordinary basement hallway, 6 doors he knew and nothing more. He's still working the night shift. The 7th door is gone now, just brick again, the way it was before all this started. But some Thursdays, deep into the quiet hours, he swears he can still hear something at the edge of hearing. Not the bell anymore, but the scrape of 20 small chairs being pushed back from 20 small desks, all at once, like a class finally being let out. That's the door, closed for good. Hit the like and subscribe button for more intriguing stories.